This is the power of pro wrestling. A podcast by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome to a very special post-Summerslam edition of the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Robert Rad, and for this very special edition of the podcast, I'm going to be joined by my nemesis, Joe. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing excellent, Robert. Let's get this show going.
Okay. Well, for this very special edition of the podcast, we are going to be talking a Superstar Shakeup, and if it's good or bad for WWE. We're also going to give our top 5 moments from this past Sunday SummerSlam, and we're going to end the show with kind of telling who we think might be shaking up in this potential Superstar Shakeup that the WWE has been mentioning. But what did you think of SummerSlam this past Sunday, Joe?
Man, this SummerSlam was pretty well awesome. I mean, there's a few lackluster matches, but overall, I would definitely say it does. I did pass my expectations of the show. So,
okay. Well, with that, let's get to our first segment, which is the Great Debate. Now, in case you missed our last episode when we did the Great Debate or when I did the 5th anniversary, the way it works is the guest, which is you, Joe, will debate one side of an issue, and I will debate the other side. We'll each have 2 minutes. I'll be quiet during yours. You'll return the favor for mine. And at the end of the show, you guys can either tweet me or leave a comment of who you think won the Great Debate. So, the topic for our Great Debate for today's episode is going to be the Superstar Shakeup. It's been rumored for a while that WWE, after SummerSlam, was going to do a Superstar Shakeup. So, with you, Joe, you're going to say why it's good for the WWE to have a Superstar Shakeup after SummerSlam, and I am going to debate against it. So, I'm going to let you start, and you've got 2 minutes, so rock and roll.
All right, the good thing about a Superstar Shakeup is that you get every superstar that is drafted or been picked to go to another brand, they give them a fresh start. Because, like I said before, somebody is on Raw and somehow they're not having a great time because there are too many high-profile superstars, or they're just mixed up in the mix and they're just left behind. So going to another brand is also giving them a chance to repackage themselves. And plus, going to a different brand, having different superstars, you get to start new rivalries, start something fresh again. It's always nice to see something new, something different. Like if you have somebody on Raw and somebody on SmackDown, and you like to see them have a fantasy, well then, when the Superstar Shakeup, you'll be able to see them drafted to another brand, and you get to see that fantasy match. So that's my positive note on the Superstar Shakeup.
Okay, some good points. I'm going to tell you why that I disagree with you and why a Superstar Shakeup after SummerSlam is not a good thing. I'm going to backtrack, and if you look at the Superstar Shakeup that happened after WrestleMania, one big thing that hurt the WWE for doing a Superstar Shakeup is Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton. You had this great rivalry on SmackDown going in, and it had been going on for months between Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. And right in the middle of the rivalry, you had Randy Orton win the title, and you didn't really let Bray Wyatt get any comeback act, and you just randomly just draft them to Raw. So why the Superstar Shakeup is bad is sometimes it separates superstars in the middle of a rivalry that don't need to be separated, and that really hurt Bray Wyatt because, you had at Payback, you had the Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt House of Horrors match that happened, but, I mean, you had superstars from different brands, so, I mean, I really think it hurts the rivalry in that instance, in that case. So that's why I think it's bad when you just, in the middle of a rivalry, have superstars shaking up. Yeah, you do have the good benefits of you get different variety and stuff like that, but it can hurt feuds and damage superstars when they are traded to another brand. And sometimes superstars are hurt by being traded to another brand because you look at guys that were maybe on SmackDown getting traded to Raw. On SmackDown, where they would have had a lot of opportunity, they were a big fish maybe in a small pond. They are a small fish in like a really large pond, and they never get to the same place that they were. Because like Bray Wyatt, like I mentioned, he was a top dog on SmackDown and WWE champion. Over on Raw, he's just almost a mid-card guy. So to me, a Superstar Shakeup is not necessarily a good thing. But that's all the time we have for this very first segment of the show. Let us know, guys, who want to debate. Are you with Joe that the Superstar Shakeup adds variety to the roster and it gives you new feuds and stuff? Or are you with me that it kind of kills feuds when it's unnecessary and it takes guys out of kind of their position that they were on another show? So feel free to leave a comment or tweet, but don't go anywhere. Our top 5 SummerSlam moments are up next.
Hey, this is Kevin Lancaster, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.
Welcome back to the show. It's now time for us to give our top 5 favorite SummerSlam moments from this past Sunday, starting with
Number 5.
Okay, Joe, give us your number 5 moment from this past Sunday SummerSlam event.
Number 5 will be, which is the least to number 1, right?
Yeah, you do your least favorite to most favorite.
Okay.
So number 5 is your least favorite.
Number 5 would be, of course, it wasn't on the main card, but it's the pre-show. And, you know, even though it's not the main card, it was still part of the SummerSlam show. So it would be New Day versus the Usos for the WWE SmackDown tag team titles. Why I say it? Because that match went back and forth. It was keeping everybody on their feet, and especially being a pre-show match, they made it into a match that should have been on the main card.
Okay, and that's a good pick. And you might see that later in my top 5 list, hint, hint. But for my number 5, I'm going to actually pick the SmackDown Women's title match. Not necessarily a good match, but the reason why I picked it is I'm a huge Natty fan. So, with her winning the title and beating Naomi was a good moment. I didn't really expect that. And as I mentioned, Natty's not had a title for 6 years, which I fear is way overdue. And she's not been women's champion. She was Divas champion when she was champion last time. So for her to finally get that SmackDown Women's title, I felt was a great move in the right direction for WWE and SmackDown. So that was my number 5 moment.
Number 4.
Okay, Joe, what is your number 4 moment?
Well, number 4 moment, and usually I don't go this route, but for once I will say this. It will be John Cena versus Baron Corbin.
Boo, John Cena sucks.
Yes, I'm not a big John Cena fan either, but, you know, for considering John Cena and his SummerSlam history, if you notice, he has been having losing streaks all these years. And for once, he actually gone on top and won. And not many people thought he would win this match, considering what happened on SmackDown. You figure Baron Corbin had a big grudge and be able to get the upper hand. But John Cena, being John Cena, he had pulled one away from us and surprised everybody.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of him winning. Like I said on the prediction show, I felt that Baron Corbin really needed this one. And so when I saw John Cena, I even told my cousins who did the show with me last week, the prediction show, the minute I saw Cena was going on first, I was like, oh, Lord, I've lost this prediction. So I was like, Cena's winning this one, and that's what winded up happening. So, John Cena did pull out a win, but that's not my number 4. I'm going to get to my number 4, and the match itself for my number 4 wasn't that good, but this part made it entertaining, and it was Enzo in the shark cage is what made it entertaining. I mean, the match itself between Big Cass and Big Show was boring, and even the fans were they were going, boring, boring. So, I mean, we had just that the match itself wasn't good until Enzo started doing his old strip tease, and then he pulls out the baby oil and starts lathering himself up, and then he's able to slip through the bars, and then he kind of hops down, and then he gets kicked by Big Cass. So, I mean, that's probably the most entertaining thing about that match. So that's why I'm putting it at number 4 over Natty and the Naomi match, because it was very entertaining, and I think more so than the SmackDown Women's title match.
Number 3.
Okay, Joe, what's your number 3 moment?
My number 3 moment, it is my favorite wrestler, AJ Styles, against Kevin Owens with Shane McMahon as special referee. And the reason why I say this, because the fact of Shane McMahon being the middle guy in this situation, it could go both ways for that match. When first you thought maybe Kevin Owens is going to win the title because maybe Shane would turn and screw AJ because of the history back at WrestleMania, or vice versa, with Kevin Owens over here bullying Shane McMahon in the match, telling him how he ought to do this, do that. And, you know, for a minute there you thought AJ's going to lose, for a minute there you thought Kevin Owens was going to lose, but at the end, AJ Styles, being the phenomenal one, he pulled one off.
Yeah, I was very happy with AJ Styles winning the title. That's one that I kind of predicted. And AJ Styles was actually the first champion on the show to retain his title. Pretty much up until then, all the other champions were on a losing streak. So with AJ Styles winning, that was very good. So I did like that match. Didn't make my top 5, but a good match. But for my number 3, I'm actually picking something you said earlier, and it is for the SmackDown Live Tag Team titles that did appear on the pre-show. And I mean, the New Day versus the Usos. It's just, these guys have such great chemistry working together that they put on such great matches, and it was almost a shame that you put these guys on the pre-show. A lot of people were upset that they got put on the pre-show because they kind of saved Battleground, is what a lot of people said, with the New Day beating the Usos for the tag titles, and then you have the Usos getting the tag titles right back. So I was like, why are you punishing these guys when they were probably the best part of Battleground? So a lot of people were upset with that, but like you mentioned about the match, it was a very entertaining match in and of itself. So, I mean, I enjoyed watching it. I was kind of scratching my head with the Usos getting the tag titles back, and there were a lot of decisions that I didn't agree with at SummerSlam, but still, on match quality, this match was number 3 for me.
Number 2.
Okay, Joe, let's go to your number 2 moment.
My number 2 moment will go to the Raw Tag Team title match, where it is Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose reuniting as 2/3 of the Shield.
Sierra, Hotel, India, Echo, Lima, Delta, Shield.
And then, of course, you know, against Sheamus and Cesaro. That match, back and forth, physical back and forth match. And for a minute there, you thought for once maybe either Dean Ambrose or Seth Rollins is going to walk away and get the other guy screwed. But at the end, Seth Rollins helped out Dean Ambrose, and they managed to get the pinfall in that match. You know, that match, you thought the unexpected, and of course, they pulled off. They showed everybody that the Shield, even though they haven't been together for past 3 years, they pulled together and they managed to win their tag team title belts.
Okay, well, my number 2, I actually am going to echo what you just said with the Raw Tag Team titles. It's the reunited Shield with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose versus Cesaro and Sheamus, as they call themselves, the Bar. So it was a very good physical match, very entertaining. Probably one of the best moments outside of the match is when Cesaro went into the crowd and tore up the beach ball for that crappy Brooklyn crowd, just wanting to ignore a great classic match between these two teams. It's just, and that even happened kind of on Raw last night with the whole beach ball thing. It was like, come on, Brooklyn, I love you, but stop it, man. And you have the reunited Shield, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, like they said, and that's something that's probably been the best part of Raw these past few weeks, other than maybe the main event scene. And then you just crap on them, and it's a classic match. Like, I think you and me cannot praise this match enough and why it deserves to be high up on the card. And for Rollins and Ambrose to finally win the tag titles was a great moment. And for Ambrose to finally win the Grand Slam championship, being U.S. champion, being WWE champion, he's been Intercontinental champion, and now winning the tag titles, he's kind of completed that Grand Slam thing. So I was very happy for Ambrose getting that. And it's his first tag title with Seth Rollins, because Rollins and Reigns were the tag champs when he won the U.S. title. So it was a different combination there of kind of the Shield guys. So it was a great match.
Number 1.
Okay, let's move on to our top moment from SummerSlam.
Well, of course, the top moment of SummerSlam has to be the main event. I mean, if you compare that event to the rest of the card, that match itself tops it all. To me, that was a 5-star match, considering that at first I had my doubts, considering you have 4 big guys in one ring, and you know, usually you see 4 big guys in the ring, you ain't gonna see no spots, nothing spectacular, no awes. But in that match, you saw Brock Lesnar get slammed into 2 tables, one of the announce tables put on top of him. You know, you see him being stretchered out of the building, and then you see him coming back and retain his title. You see Roman Reigns get beat up. You've seen Samoa Joe get beat up. You've seen Braun Strowman get manhandled for a little bit through from Roman Reigns, and at the end, of course, if you're not a Reigns fan, you see Reigns get pinned by the Beast himself. So that to me is my top moment of the night.
Yeah, my top moment, I just have to echo everything you just said. It was the Universal title match, Fatal 4-Way. And I mean, the match, my godfather, who I was watching it with him, and my guest, JT Money, and Justin, and I was watching the show with them, and my cousin, the godfather, said that this match not only met his expectations, but it exceeded. It was very physical contest, very brutal, physical, like I said, and just having the table spot with Braun Strowman, putting Lesnar through tables, and then having the third one dumped on him, and then having them stretchered out. When I saw that they were doing the stretcher spot right there, I was like, I felt a little more secure with Brock Lesnar, because I was like, okay, they're not going to do the spot and maybe have Brock Lesnar lose the title, and that's how I lose it, just stretchered out. I was like, okay, and they're probably going to have him come back later, and I even said that to my cousin, and that he's going to come back out later and he's going to win the match, and that's what wound up happening. Now, they weren't very happy with that, but the match in itself, the quality, I think, was the best thing of the night. So that is what I'm going to pick for my number one moment of the night. But that's all the time we have left for this segment. It's time for our final commercial break, but stay tuned. Rapid fire next.
This is The Godfather, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling. Oh, yeah, podcast.
Welcome back to the show. It's now time for the fastest segment in the show, Rapid Fire.
Rapid fire?
Fire!
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 Okay.
For this edition of Rapid Fire, we will be discussing superstars that will be traded in the WWE host another Superstar Shakeup, starting with, I'm going to throw you an easy one. Samoa Joe. Is he going to be traded in the Superstar Shakeup if they were to have one?
No. He is right now doing good on Raw, especially right now. Raw has, Samoa Joe is a very physical man, and he's very dominating right now in Raw. And if you, like you mentioned earlier about Bray Wyatt, if you move into SmackDown, it's going to ruin his character and his energy he has going on Raw. If he goes to SmackDown, he has to start all new again. So he's better off staying on Raw at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. He's not going anywhere if they do a Superstar Shakeup, because he's got the feud with John Cena. It's even advertised that he's going to be here where we're recording the podcast on Saturday when they do a house show. He's fighting Cena again in Mississippi on Sunday. So I don't see him being traded in a Superstar Shakeup. Okay, let's move to the Demon King himself, Finn Balor.
As of right now, he doesn't have any major feuds going on. I believe his feud with Bray Wyatt's pretty much over with, because you haven't seen him last time on Raw. But him going to SmackDown will be an excellent addition to SmackDown, considering that Finn Balor, ever since he got hurt last year in SummerSlam, he hasn't got any trenching going on in Raw at the moment. So SmackDown is a new, fresh start for him to start new and rebuild his character.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they do a Superstar Shakeup, Finn Balor would be the perfect person to trade. I mean, you've lost Cena. You've lost a lot of great guys from SmackDown to Raw. So to send Balor over there would be great. And he could get in the WWE title picture with Jinder Mahal, or he could fight. You could have the Shinsuke Nakamura match. You have Sami Zayn. There's a lot of great feuds. AJ Styles, if he doesn't get drafted to Raw, I mean, there's a lot of great feuds you could put him in. So I think he would get traded in a Superstar Shakeup. Let's move on. How about Dolph Ziggler? Or as my cousin would say, Dolph Zingler.
Dolph Ziggler. I would say he would be a good addition to Raw if he do a Super Shakeup. He doesn't have anything going on right now on SmackDown, and he's always been known all these years as a SmackDown guy. He's been in SmackDown. We had the draft before. He has never really made a big impact on Raw. And so if you put him on Raw and get him a fresh start, his character, maybe repackage him, and since he's getting closer to the end of his career, get him something to pay him back for all these years of sacrifices he has done for WWE.
Okay. I think I could see Dolph Ziggler being traded in the Superstar Shakeup, because, I mean, he really doesn't have anything on SmackDown right now. He's not really feuding with anybody. So I think he would actually benefit from being traded in a Superstar Shakeup to Raw, and he could have some fresh matches and stuff. And that could be another great mid-card guy that you could put on Raw to fill out the 3 hours of the show, and it would be entertaining to see him on Raw. Okay, let's move on to the big dog, Roman Reigns.
as much as I'd like to see him drafted, because personally, in my own opinion, I'd like to see him drafted SmackDown to something, for him this change, get away from the other two Shield members. But like we said before, we've seen it so many times. They already got him set up against Cena down the road, or even not. If it's not Cena, it's either Brock Lesnar or somebody. Plus, Roman Reigns already claimed that Raw is his yard, and why change that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see him being traded in a Superstar Shakeup where he could benefit going over to SmackDown, and SmackDown could benefit from having a big name like Roman Reigns on their show. I just don't see them trading him away from Raw. Some guys are just too big that you're not going to put on SmackDown. And like a Brock Lesnar, I don't with him being the way he is, he's too big of a star and he's getting paid too much to just let him languish away on SmackDown. You're going to have him on Raw. So I think Roman Reigns is kind of the same way. Him being the big dog and like with the potential Cena feud, that's going to happen maybe at Mania or maybe in the coming months. I don't see him getting traded. Let's move on to Bo Dallas.
Wow, that's a curved one there. I mean, Bo Dallas has not really had much going on for him at all. But at the moment, I don't see him being traded because of the fact of he is doing pretty good with the Mr. Raj. If you go and put him on SmackDown, it ended up being back to what he was doing before, being just a side gimmick. He ended up doing dark matches and probably be mixing the shovel. So, no, I don't think he'd be traded.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he would be traded in a Superstar Shakeup. It's possible just for the simple fact of they do something different, but he's doing so great with the Miz and the Mr. Raj, like you mentioned. I don't see him getting traded. Okay, let's move on to Tyler Breeze.
And that's a curved one too. I mean, to me, right now, what's going on with him and Fandango, they got a good tag team, but it's not good enough to where they get any. They got this little segment of the
Fashion Files, yeah.
Fashion Files, but I don't believe that's going to be good enough to keep him going long enough, because it's only good for the moment, but eventually it's going to die down. So for him going to Raw, I believe maybe he could be drafted to Raw to do something new, fresh, and get his career going where it ought to be going.
I see him as a potential trade in the Superstar Shakeup for the simple fact, I mean, you could take him over and that'd be another mid-card feud. But, I mean, to take him away from Fandango and the Fashion File, something that a lot of people would argue has been the best thing of SmackDown, I think would be detrimental to SmackDown. And I think he would get lost in the shuffle on Raw if he did get traded, just like Apollo Crews. I mean, yeah, he's got the title worldwide, but, I mean, you're focusing more on Tozawa than you are Apollo Crews. So, I mean, I think it would be harmful and damaging to Tyler Breeze if he was traded over to Raw in a Superstar Shakeup. I could see it happening, but it would be detrimental to him if he did get traded. Now let's end it with Asuka.
Oh, Asuka. Knowing the fact that she got injured at the Brooklyn 3 takeover, and her still being the women's champion of NXT, but at the same time, WWE is unpredictable at the moment. And yes, she may be injured and all that, but they can still draft her from NXT to, I would figure, to Raw. Reason for being Raw, because she's a very strong competitor. They made her look strong at NXT, and Raw is known for all its strong superstars. So why not put her on Raw? Put her on SmackDown. There's not much strong female competitors down there, and her going to SmackDown will be her being in NXT right now, dominating too much where there'll be nobody else to be able to compete against her.
Yeah, I could see her get traded in the Superstar Shakeup just for the simple fact of she's done everything she can do. She's broke Goldberg's streak. There's no reason for her to stay in NXT. So, I mean, if she does get well, you could have her coming soon to Raw or SmackDown, wherever they're going to put her. To me, Raw's the best place because you have the Nia Jax. You've got Bayley when Bayley returns. You might could put her with Sasha Banks. I think there would be a lot of great matches you could put Asuka in if you moved her to Monday Night Raw. You really don't have that on SmackDown, although a lot of people argue the women's division is better on SmackDown. I think she would be a much better fit for Raw, if she doesn't get traded, but I can see her get traded in the Superstar Shakeup. But that's all the time we have for this show. You can check me out on the show. I have Facebook. You can find me. It's Robert Lee Red Jr. On Twitter, I'm at Robert Red Jr. I have an Instagram, I believe it's Robert Lee Red Jr. as well. You can find me on YouTube. It's youtube.com/user/Robert Red. and the podcast you can find if you search iTunes. If you have an iOS device or Android and you can use Google Play, you search The Power Pro Wrestling. You can subscribe, and it automatically downloads the latest episodes of the podcast. Also, it's shoutengine.com/The Power Pro Wrestling. You can listen to it directly there. Now, thank you for coming on the show. Joe, where can people find you on the interwebs? What's your social media?
Well, they can find me through my Joe Young, which is Rage Facebook page. And go look on there because there's some great events coming up here soon on that page. I always post a lot of things, what's going on with myself and throughout. I also try to post things for my co-host over here, Robert over here. And then also, if you can't find me through there, you can find through my assistant, Jessica Phillips. She has a Facebook page. It's plain old simple, Jessica Phillips, and she can help you find me. And she can even go. You can even go through her if you need to go through Robert. So that's all my social media there. Yeah,
and she even has a Twitter, which you can find my Twitter at to follow her. So give her a follow. She's got a lot of great stuff too on there when she does post. But I want to thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Joe, for joining me for this very special edition of the podcast. And we will catch you next time on the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast.
And the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast is brought to you by Dwayne Hadley Designs. From logos, flyers, and business cards, Dwayne Hadley Designs does it so you don't have to. For a free quote, visit DwayneHadleyDesigns.weebly.com.